Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Poppy. I'm an artist and a writer, and today I want to talk about something that is very prolific within the book communities, online and within publishing at the minute, and that is the discourse around Mia Ballard and Shy Girl. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Shy Girl is a book, a horror novel that was recently pulled from publication in the UK and the US due to allegations that the author used AI in the writing of the book. People have piled on significantly online, and the reason that I want to talk about it is to not defend or to add to the allegation necessarily, but to point out some of the really important facts and just be a bit kinder on the situation. I have not read the book. I have no intention to read the book. Mia Ballard self-published Shy Girl in 2025, and it was picked up by Hachette to traditionally publish it. It isn't a book that I would likely pick up anyway, but something that I have done is read through some of the passages that people have highlighted as being evidence of AI. I have listened to many other people talk about these passages and the book in general in regards to whether or not it has been influenced by AI. The reason that I've chosen to speak on it is because what I see in those passages and the many aspects of Mia Ballard's book is not evidence of AI, it's evidence of a fledgling writer. Whether or not Mia Ballard pursued self-publishing instead of traditional because it was refused or because it didn't make it through the slush piles with literary agents, whatever the case for her choosing to self-publish, I think it's really important to remember that the majority of self-published books on the market right now do not go through a rigorous editorial process. Writing is a skill and it takes time to master it. It's difficult. It's not as easy as you think. I think that writing is incredibly accessible right now. There are many places to self-publish, whether it's through fan fiction sites or through many online digital publishing kind of websites. Anybody can self-publish a book. Amazon, as an example, is flooded with self-published work and people read them, people enjoy them, but also it's really important to remember the level of writing is often not as exceptional as the books that come out through traditional publishing, and the reason for that is the really incredibly hardworking teams that work on a book throughout its publishing cycle. A book is not taken on by an agent and then a publisher and then just given a cover and sent out to bookshops. These teams often spend at least a year working on the text and making sure that it is up to a certain standard before it's out. This is not the case for every book. Obviously, there are many books that I've read and that most people have read that are not great writing, but the stories and the readership carries them through. Mia Ballard did not employ a team of editors to look over her work before she self-published. She self-published a passion project, and I respect her doing that. I respect the bravery that it takes authors to self-publish, but I think it's really important to acknowledge the amount of work that it didn't get to go through, that it should have gone through when it was picked up by Hachette. It is no secret within the publishing industry that editors are having a lot of their work reduced and they are being overworked and a lot of things are falling through the cracks. Whether it's because the houses want to push through books really quickly so they don't get the full editorial treatment that they would have 10 years ago. It's sad. It's a sad reality of the times we're living in now that even books are being churned out as products rather than exceptional works of art. It's sad and it's a shame, and it means that a lot of books are being pushed out on the expectation that the writing doesn't really matter if it has a good marketing budget behind it and it has a readership that's already in place. They'll just churn them out. Like, they're happy to do that without the care and attention that writing needs. The reason that books need to go through editorial is because, and as a writer, as somebody that has been building these skills, going to workshops and classes, I did creative writing as part of my English literature degree. I was graded on it. I was critiqued heavily. It's all really important to building skills. People think that because we often are using a language that is just the one that we speak, it's really easy to write a book. It's not. And also, just because you've written a book doesn't automatically mean that it's good writing. The passages in Mia Ballard's Shy Girl that have been heavily critiqued as being written by AI are not evidence of AI. They're evidence of bad writing, and I don't say that to disrespect Mia Ballard and the work that it's taken for her to write this book. I say it because we are all like Mia Ballard at some stage in our writing career. Early on as a writer, if you go through classes and you get critiqued by peers, by tutors, by lecturers, you will understand at some point in that journey that you are not automatically a good writer just because you have a handle on your own vocabulary. Storytelling is hard work. Writing a good narrative is hard work. And creating a book with all the necessary suspense, thrills, mysteries, emotional connections to engage a reader, it's hard work. It's no different to learning a physical sport, progressing in gymnastics or football or rugby, any of those things. It's no different to being a painter. It takes time. Just because you write a bunch of sentences, string them together enough to fill 400 pages, doesn't mean that it's any good. And I think the biggest issue with self-publishing now is that criticism doesn't happen a lot in self-publishing. I've read many self-published books that are really exceptional, but it's because people going through self-publishing instead of traditional publishing still have to put the money in to getting the work looked at. So there are people that self-publish exceptionally well-written books, and it's usually because they've hired an editor and they've hired a proofreader. They've put together a team and they've put money into making sure that that book is the best that it can be. Authors that don't do that and that just churn out books and self-publish them without that process, the likelihood is that the writing is not good. And that's, it's just a reality. I think that people are so afraid of criticism now that we're just not doing it at all. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that a book that is self-published is not good. One of the main critiques with Mia Ballard's writing is that she overuses the same words again and again. A very common thing with early writers. Another thing is that she uses too many similes, too many metaphors, overly purple description. These are all indicative of early career writers. Everybody goes through these experiences. One of the biggest criticisms that I received when studying creative writing is that I used too many similes and metaphors. My descriptions were over the top. I overused adverbs, adjectives. I would always try to swap out she said, he said, I said with yelled, cried, shouted, whispered. I felt that every said had to be replaced. And it's because when you learn to write in primary school or high school and you learn these terms, you learn these techniques of writing, that's a very basic level of learning to write. And you carry that through into the next stage of your teaching. And then somebody tells you, okay, yes, I'm glad that you know what a simile is and a metaphor and an adjective. And I'm glad that you know how to write a sentence so you understand clauses, but you don't have to do it in every single paragraph. Not every piece of dialogue has to be described after a character says something. Sometimes saying something is enough. So people applying the critique of using AI to those particular writing techniques, insane behavior. And it shows the fundamental lack of knowledge that we have as readers, okay? It is so easy nowadays to read something unfamiliar to you or uncritiqued piece of writing and just stamp the badge of AI onto it. It's so easy to do that. People are doing it willy-nilly without thinking about the consequences to their own intellectual growth and the consequences to people trying to do that for work. You do not have any authority in identifying AI. And it's really mad, genuinely, to think that you have a right to critique writers, professional authors or unprofessional authors. You don't have any understanding of that. AI is so new in this particular field. You know, chatbots have had such a flurry of attention in the past couple years, but it's still really fresh, and we still do not have much understanding of how they work and how to spot them being used in bodies of work like this. We don't know, okay? Like, we just don't, and it's scary. Like, I agree, like, it worries me that I could pick up a book off a shelf and not know that other authors have been plagiarized within the writing of that. But also, AI is not the only tool that people have used to plagiarize works. Fan fiction is a form of creative plagiarism. It's also a form of creative influence. So many books have been written historically inspired by other works. But if someone were to copy direct passages from another work, that would be classed as plagiarism. It's a fine line, maybe, but you have to remember that influence comes in all shapes and sizes. AI being used in writing is usually, it's no disrespect. Again, I feel a bit squirrely using certain words, but it's lazy. And it lacks creativity and ingenuity, and it lacks intelligence. There is no need to use AI when writing books. Books are a form of art and they should be respected that way. And if you're using AI because you don't know how to write, for the love of God, go to a writing class. Speak to other writers. There is a wealth of free resources online to teach you how to write books. They are everywhere and they are useful. If you can't afford to learn how to write from a masterclass or from creative writing workshops, that's okay. The replacement for that is not using AI tools. You're not writing a book if you used an AI tool. You're just not, like, end of. There's not really a discussion to be had around it. Another writing technique that has been criticised in Mia Ballard's books is the use of punctuation. We all have seen the rhetoric around the M dash and the rule of threes and their relation to using chatbots. Again, insanity, okay? Chatbots are trained on the use of the written language. These chatbots that are conversational, that are used as a writing tool, are fed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of writing examples. And for a very long time, writing has been regarded as a craft. And punctuation is literally just a set of rules within our language. Punctuation rules change language to language. For example, speech marks are not used the same way in other languages. They're used differently in French. The question mark is used alternatively in various Spanish languages. The punctuation that we use, you can't spot it as an AI specific thing because that's impossible. AI are not inventing punctuation. They're just using it in the same way as the writing that they've been trained on. And it's the same level of writing that people are still using today to write novels, to write poetry. The M dash, I love an M dash. It's incredibly useful for suspense, for emotional trauma, for cutting speech and dialogue during certain difficult character disputes. It's used for interruption. It's used for enjambment, specifically in poetry. It's used widely within the written English language, which is why it comes up when you put in certain prompts for writing on these chatbots, because it's a piece of punctuation that is used really commonly. You don't see the M dash because you're writing on social media and texting, and probably the majority of people don't even use email that much unless they're getting promotions from retail sales. Like, the majority of people that don't use long form writing in their work or personal lives will not be familiar with using a wider range of punctuation. Like, how many people that aren't writers use speech marks? I don't use speech marks in my personal text messages. I don't use it in my Instagram messages unless I'm quoting something, because I use the written language for work and, you know, I'm a writer. I use speech marks when I'm referencing something. I've used speech marks in my academic writing. But how many of you genuinely that are not writing for work use speech marks, M dashes, or any form of punctuation? Nobody is using it anymore. We don't write letters to each other. We don't even email each other. Just because it's not something that you see every day doesn't mean it's not something that is used by people. And I really don't know how else to explain that. The reason that you aren't familiar with punctuation is because you aren't seeing what you're saying with punctuation in it. There's some really exceptional examples of novel writers out there that don't use punctuation as an experimental form of writing, and it's used fantastically. It's exciting that we can look at our language, experiment with it in ways that people can still understand what it means. And I respect so many writers that use punctuation in experimental ways. I find it fascinating. Most people, when they're chatting, they do not write in full sentences, they don't write out paragraphs. It's just like a modern language thing. It's dialectical. You know, there's so many different ways and reasons for not using punctuation or for overusing punctuation, and none of them are indicators of using AI chatbots. So let's talk about Mia Ballard's use of description and the rule of threes. The rule of threes is a descriptive technique that is taught to you in different creative writing classes. I learned about it probably while doing my A-levels, because I studied English literature and language at my A-levels. So we had a mix of creative and professional writing and, you know, textual analysis. So we researched novels, but we also did writing exercises, and our grades were split between the two. I can't think of any examples, but it's basically just like using three descriptive terms, or listing three things within a sentence or a paragraph to further add detail or action to what's happening. It's a really common one that is taught like throughout different levels of writing. So if you did English at high school, if you got a GCSE in English, you probably learned the rule of threes. So the reason that it comes up a lot in AI writing or like prompts on these chatbots is because it's a very common writing technique that's used by people. And again, same point again, Just because you aren't using it, because you aren't writing, doesn't mean it isn't one that is really commonly used. I refuse to stop using important and exciting writing techniques just because chatbots are trained on writing. It's insane to stop using writing techniques that are really useful for novels, poetry, short stories, letters, academic analysis. It's insane to just go, oh, I'm just not going to use the English language properly or authentically because chatbots use it. What are you talking about? It makes no sense for that to be the way that you move forward when thinking about AI. You can ask an AI chatbot to write you a text or to write in text format to give a message to someone, and it will do that. It will cut out vowels like we have done for decades when sending text messages. All of these forms of digital communication that we have developed over the past few decades, it knows how to do all of those things too. It's just when people are using chatbots for work, for emails, for professional, for school assignments, because I know that, that's a problem with schools now. It can do all of those things if you ask it to anyway. It will be plagiarizing from most forms of writing in order to give you back what you're asking for, but that's all that it's doing. It's taking something that already exists, was already written by a person, using the English language, vocabulary, punctuation, description, everything that makes writing what it is. It's taking things from that and churning it out to you. So looking for certain things that AI uses in its writing feedback, to spot AI, impossible, because they're just using the same writing techniques that professional writers are using. A really important thing to remember about this situation is not how Mia Ballard writes. Whatever the reason is that led to her book going through AI doesn't really matter. The people at professional levels manipulating this situation for their own monetary gain are the people that you should be focusing on. Hachette is one of my favourite publishers in the UK. I think that they are working with some incredible writers, and I look forward to seeing what new releases come out through their imprints. I think here they really dropped the ball. I don't think it was maliciously done. I think that it is a symptom of what is happening in the publishing industry right now. Publishing books, of course, in a capitalist society has always had to be about making money in order to keep bringing out those books. But it isn't the only reason that publishing houses exist. Publishers champion writing as well as focus on making money. And in this case, it was about making money. It wasn't about picking up a particularly important story. They saw a book that had self-published and done good numbers for a self-published book, had a readership, had fans, had a fan base, and they saw an opportunity to make money and they picked it up. They also didn't put the book through the same editorial process that they would have given to an author that they had picked up from an agent. And again, I will highlight the incredibly difficult job that editors have as a baseline for working with writers. You are having to critique and to offer changes for a book that is somebody's passion project. It's not an easy position to be in, work that you have to do, and the very little time you're given to do it it's not an easy task. It's a really, really difficult one. And not only is it already difficult, but more time and resources are being pulled away from editorial within big publishing houses, which is having a knock-on effect on the quality of work that is being published. and the quality of experience that writers and agents and publishing workers are being able to have. And it's really sad. Like, it's really sad to see an industry move so far away from editing, because it will lead to more work being self-published without the respect that that work deserves and the editorial advice that the writers genuinely need to grow and develop into better writers over time. It's really such a shame. And I think that Mia Ballard is being scapegoated as part of that decline in quality that the publishing industry is putting out. We prioritize businesses in society over individuals. Hachette has removed liability from themselves to protect the company rather than acknowledging their part in what has happened. And I think that that is such a shame. I think that we as a society have grown so afraid of accountability that it has bled into every aspect of our lives. So it's not a surprise that Mia Ballard is being completely put out to pasture, whereas everybody else is either benefiting from the situation or removing any responsibility and accountability from themselves. But it will affect Mia Ballard's professional life and possibly her personal life. She could be really struggling with the anxiety and the stress that has come from this situation. And it will affect whether or not a publisher ever decides to take a chance on her work again, because she didn't know any better. And the reason that I say she didn't know any better is because she didn't really do anything differently to what everybody else is doing in their lives. She, is being accused of using AI by people that will absolutely be using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini every single day. And people are holding her to a standard that they are not fulfilling themselves by pointing out that the guy that caught her is someone trying to sell AI detection software. He used his own software to prove that Mia Ballard used AI to write Shy Girl by putting it through his own AI detection software. AI is still so new that there is no effective AI software that can take a product and detect its use. It does not exist yet, and this guy selling it is out for himself. And he has used Mia Ballard because rumours already existed, critiques already existed of her writing that said that she used AI. And there's no genuine evidence of it. I'm not saying that there's no way to find evidence of using AI. I think that something that schools are using now that's really interesting is that when kids are writing their assignments, their homework, they are using specific programs that have trackers within the software themselves that can show evidence of them using chatbots and AI to write all or parts of their assignments. That is an example of a software existing that can track the use of it, because it's literally tracking the writing of an assignment while it's happening. You can't put a book through a chatbot and have it tell you whether or not it was written using AI. So everything that's evidence-based in this situation and others like it are not genuinely based on anything. They're based on the repetition of certain words. Again, something that writers do. When I am going through the editorial stages of a certain piece of writing, I will look for words that I use too much. I'll search for them in the document, highlight them all, and then I will go through and change some of them as part of the editorial process. Because as human beings that have a spoken and written language, we often repeat ourselves and we use words that are more comfortably part of our vocabulary than we do use words that aren't. So putting Mia Ballard's work through an AI detection software that's looking for those things that are just part and parcel of using the English language, it does not provide any evidence. I think it's such a shame that this has happened. If what Mia Ballard says is true and that someone used a chatbot to edit her work, what a shame. Is it surprising that someone put her work through a chatbot to edit it because she didn't want to do the work? Not Mia Ballard, this other person. Like, if someone put her work through AI in order to help edit it, while AI is used so commonplace in society now, it's really not surprising. I think editors at publishing houses are also using chatbots for certain things. It's happening everywhere. It's not surprising that at an editorial level, a chatbot was used. You know, Grammarly is a similar software to what people are using to write things now, except its focus is editing. So if you use Grammarly to edit essays or passages from your book, poems, whatever, it's doing exactly the same thing. Who's to say that Grammarly wasn't the software that was used to edit Mia Ballard's book? It's not going to do any developmental edits, but it will pick up on vocabulary. And I just really wanted to add some level of conversation to the discourse about the difficulty of building the writing skills that you need to write a novel, and the unfortunate output of self-publication. If you want to self-publish your book, do it. For God's sake, publish your own work. But please do some editing. Ask an editor to work on it and take the critique. It makes such a difference to a book to have it professionally reviewed than just to write a book, write 80,000 words, 100,000 words, however long it is, and just publish it as is. There's very little guarantee that it will be good enough to hold up to quality standards of other novels. And that's not shaming writers, it's just pointing out the level of care and detail that goes through the editorial process, or that should be part of the editorial process, because publishing standards they're sliding. We have built a capitalist society that is becoming overwhelmingly difficult to live within, and this is just a symptom of it. I really feel for Mia Ballard and her situation. I do not condone AI, but I do not know if she used it. So I am not willing to degrade her or pile on, and you shouldn't either. As a writer and an artist, I wanted to give my 2 cents, and I wanted to offer some defence and care to Mia Ballard's situation than she is receiving from most other people. Tell me what you think about this situation. Leave me a comment. Do you agree with what I've said? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Do you have something else that you'd like to say? I would love to talk to more people about this because I think it's a really, really sad discussion. I hope that Mia Ballard recovers from this and is able to pursue her passions in the future. I don't know how she's going to be able to do that under her own name, which is really sad. I really feel for her in this situation, and I feel for most self-published authors that are not getting the best experience, because traditional publishing is really hard to get into. It's really, really hard out there. And if self-publishing is the only way that you get to put your story out there to other people, oh my God, do it. Do it. But find an editor first. If you can avoid using AI, please do, because it is detrimental to a lot of people right now. People are suffering. There are better ways to write than to rely on chatbots. It's good for your brain. So do your own writing. Enjoy the flowers, walk in the park, go see some greenery. It's spring, it's beautiful outside, and keep reading excellent books and great stories as well, even if they're not so well written. Just read. Bye.